paralyzed.
Okay, so Pooh Shiesty and Durk dropped the song Back in Blood.
The reason what made me respond is because it was just false as hell. Like, it just was a whole bunch of make-believe and exaggerated situation. So that was just made me respond.
Paralyzed.
Okay, so Pooh Shiesty and Durk dropped the song Back in Blood, and you guys respond to it, you know. So you guys took that first song, has a diss towards you guys?
The sound, yeah, you can tell I took it as a diss, but it just, the reason what made me respond is because it was just false as hell. Like, it just was a whole bunch of make-believe and exaggerated situation. So that was just made me respond.
Then one morning, everything changed. Officers moved in and entered the apartment, where they found clear signs of ongoing illegal activity with tools and equipment out in the open. Officers discharged their weapons 3 times at a dog, forcing it back into the kitchen, where it later died. The scene turned chaotic fast. People running through the apartment, some trying to escape through windows as glass shattered everywhere. In the middle of that chaos, Shiesty's father tried to move from apartment 3 into apartment 4, but officers caught up with him in the kitchen. During the search, authorities reported finding controlled substances and a large amount of cash, including over $10,000 recovered directly from his pocket. That was the kind of environment Pooh Shiesty grew up in. That was the example set early, shaping how he viewed the world around him. Before even hitting his teenage years, by age 11, he had already faced legal trouble and was removed from middle school. He was also placed on an ankle monitor at an age when most kids were just getting their first phone. And instead of slowing him down, it seemed to normalize that lifestyle in his eyes. To him, it started to feel like this was just how things worked, like it was part of a system he had to follow. As he got older, his name began to carry weight around the city. People described him as bold, quick to act, and not afraid to take risks or confront others directly. That reputation is exactly where the name Shiesty came from. He stayed ready, always alert, moving in a way that stood out from everyone else. By the time he reached Central High School, things started shifting again. He built a tighter circle, reconnecting with his childhood friend Big 30, whose real name is Rodney Lamont Wright Jr. from Whitehaven. Together, they gave their group a name, Choppa Gang. Now within Choppa Gang, members came from different affiliations. Some had ties to Grape Street Crips, others had connections to Piru Bloods, but Choppa Gang moved as its own independent unit. They weren't tied to one flag or controlled by outside rules. They built their own identity, and loyalty inside that circle was serious and unquestioned. There's a story about a member known as White Grape, also called White Boy Kenny. Around Central High, he had a reputation, outgoing, well-known, and popular. At one point, he was initiated into the Grape Street Crips, going through a rough initiation that later circulated online. But not long after, things shifted. White Grape was reportedly involved in a situation where he lost possession of his own weapon during something connected to Choppa Gang. In that environment, that's not taken lightly. It raises serious questions about reliability. Because of that, the group cut ties with him completely, no second chances. Months later, he was involved in a deal that went wrong when someone tried to pay him with fake money. The situation escalated, and the other individual lost their life, and from that point forward, whatever came next was on him. By 2016, Shiesty had already experienced real loss that shaped how he moved. He said it himself, "Growing up in Memphis, losing someone close at a young age feels almost unavoidable." Around that time, he lost his best friend, Trey Day, and it hit deep. That moment changed something in him. In interviews, he explained how that loss made him emotionally distant, how it pushed him to stop expecting fairness from life and just move differently. After that, his mindset shifted completely. He stopped hesitating and started acting with purpose, no matter how intense things got. That approach became part of who he was. By the time he graduated high school in 2018, Choppa Gang already had multiple ways of making money moving at once. They started putting some of that into studio time, not necessarily chasing fame, but because the music reflected their real experiences. They'd been living these stories for years, so turning them into music felt natural. Their first track, Breaking News, dropped toward the end of 2018 and started gaining attention quickly. By 2019, the momentum was building heavy. Big 30 ended up signing with Moneybagg Yo's Bread Gang imprint, marking a major step forward. Meanwhile, Shiesty stayed independent, consistently dropping music and building his fan base step by step. The numbers kept rising, and people at the top of the industry started paying attention. Gucci Mane was building his 1017 roster, looking for raw, authentic talent. He came across one of Shiesty's tracks on YouTube and reached out to him directly on Instagram. From there, things moved fast. Contracts came together, and a major deal with Atlantic Records followed. Choppa Gang had officially stepped into the spotlight, and with that spotlight came a whole new level of attention that made everything around them even more intense. Now, it's time to look at the other side. EBG, Everybody Gang, also known as Bezel Gang, coming out of North Memphis. And that detail matters more than outsiders realize. The divide between North Memphis and South Memphis isn't just location, it runs deeper. It's cultural, historical, and personal. Tension between the two sides has existed for generations, shaping how people move, think, and represent where they're from. Different groups hold influence in different areas, and each neighborhood comes with its own expectations and unspoken rules. The environment you grow up in can shape your entire identity in ways outsiders don't always understand. EBG came out of North Memphis, and one of their most recognized voices was EBG E Jizzle. Now here's where it gets even more intense. Jizzle and Pooh Shiesty both went to Central High School. They weren't strangers at all. They walked the same hallways, lived in the same city, and came up under the same Memphis culture. But despite those similarities, they came from different sides, different circles, and completely different mindsets that just happened to cross paths in one building. EBG weren't artists who just happened to have tough backgrounds. That idea doesn't really fit here. It was more like they lived their reality first, and music came second as a way to express it. And that difference matters a lot. Everything became public when Back in Blood pushed their situation straight into the spotlight in front of millions worldwide. EBG didn't react like entertainers trying to protect an image. The tension between Choppa Gang and EBG didn't start with a song. Let's make that clear right now. There was already history, already real issues building up over time. This situation had roots deep in the streets of Memphis, long before anything touched the internet. We're talking ongoing problems tied to territory, money, pride, and the kind of pressure that builds when two groups exist in the same city, moving differently but crossing the same paths. That kind of tension doesn't just appear overnight, it stacks up over years. What Back in Blood did was take all that behind-the-scenes pressure and throw it into the spotlight for the whole world to see. And once it hit that level, there was no pulling it back. On November 6, 2020, Lil Durk and Pooh Shiesty released the audio for Back in Blood. That date stands out for a major reason. It's the same day King Von passed away in Atlanta after a confrontation outside a lounge involving another group. He later died at the hospital, and the news shook the entire music world. Durk, who was extremely close to him, was deeply affected by that loss. At the same time, while fans and artists everywhere were processing everything, Back in Blood dropped that same day. The timing added a completely different weight to it. Durk's verse felt personal, focused on loyalty, connection, and standing by your people no matter what. And with everything that had just happened, listeners felt that emotion even stronger. But in Memphis, people weren't really focused on Durk's verse like that. Those who understood the streets, the history, and the people involved were locked in on Shiesty's verse, especially one specific line. "Yeah, you know who took that from you. Come get it back in blood." That line wasn't vague. It wasn't open for debate. It landed directly, and people in the city knew exactly who it was aimed at. What Shiesty was referring to was an alleged incident involving stolen items. Reports claimed members tied to Choppa Gang had gone to a location connected to EBG and taken several things from inside. That situation was already known in certain circles, but now it was being broadcast in a song for the entire world to hear. With major backing, a high-profile feature from Durk, and a full video rollout on the way, this wasn't just talk anymore. It was being pushed globally, turning a local issue into headline content. On the other side, EBG addressed the situation in interviews. They didn't deny something happened, but their version told a different story. They downplayed it, saying nothing serious was actually taken, and claiming no one was even there at the time. According to them, it was being exaggerated, turned into something bigger than it really was, possibly to build a stronger image in the music scene. They also suggested Shiesty was looking for attention from North Memphis. But here's the key point. It didn't really matter what Jizzle believed about the intentions. The song was real, the disrespect felt real, and Back in Blood didn't just climb charts, it exploded. Within 4 weeks, it pulled over 50 million views on YouTube alone. At its peak, Shiesty became the second most streamed artist in the country, right behind Drake. He had billboards across the nation. His debut album moved around 60,000 units in its first week, backed by Gucci Mane's 1017 and Atlantic Records. His name was everywhere, non-stop. But while all that success was building, while Shiesty was doing interviews and being labeled one of the new faces of Memphis rap, EBG was watching closely. Every move, every milestone, they were seeing someone they already had real issues with rise into mainstream fame, while a personal situation was being turned into global content. Then, just weeks later, early one morning around 6 a.m., Shiesty posted a message online that many saw as a direct warning. The post hinted at serious consequences if a certain track was released. That message was aimed at EBG, and by that point, they were already working on their response. The warning was out there, but they moved forward anyway. On January 1st, 2021, New Year's Day, while most people were recovering from the night before or setting goals, EBG stepped into a studio in North Memphis and recorded their own version over the Back in Blood beat. They addressed the situation, spoke on what was being said, and put their version out publicly. In the video, they wore hoodies marked with 3 letters, CGK, meaning Choppa Gang Killer. That wasn't subtle, that was a direct message sent to millions watching. Shiesty reacted almost instantly on social media. He said this was the worst move EBK could have made. He even claimed he had already pulled in around 18 million views connected to the situation before even mentioning them directly. Then, just 1 day later, January 2nd, Shiesty dropped the official Back in Blood music video with Lil Durk, filmed months earlier in Chicago. He had been holding that video, waiting for the right moment, and this was it. The timing was calculated perfectly. As EBK's response started gaining traction, Shiesty's video hit the internet and pushed the track right back into the spotlight. It started trending again, climbing charts and taking over all over. It showed exactly how powerful industry backing can be when used at the right time. EBK responded, but Shiesty flipped that response into even more momentum for himself. Meanwhile, EBK's remix kept getting taken down due to copyright issues. Every upload would gain traction, hit strong numbers, then disappear again. So EBG Jizzle went back to the studio and created something original, a diss track called Rumors. No borrowed beat this time, no restrictions. People were watching closely. Comment sections were going crazy. What started as a local situation had now reached a mainstream audience, many of whom didn't even fully understand the backstory. But then reality stepped in and reminded everyone this wasn't just music. Just days after Rumors dropped, EBG Jizzle was involved in a serious shooting. He was hit multiple times with injuries to his arm and ended up in the hospital. Footage started spreading online showing him in a hospital bed, clearly in pain, recording himself and trying to speak. At one point he said, "I can't walk, I can't," before cutting himself off. At first, nobody really knew how serious it was, But the internet quickly jumped to conclusions. Rumors started flying everywhere, with people claiming he was permanently injured or unable to recover. Social media lit up instantly. Posts, reactions, opinions flooding timelines. Some mocked the situation, others tried to figure out what really happened. But those early claims weren't accurate. Despite how serious it was, he was not paralyzed. His injuries were treated and his arm was placed in a cast as he began recovering. And this is where things take a wild turn. Instead of stepping back, staying quiet, or taking time to heal, he went straight back to the studio, even with the cast still on. He recorded another diss track and titled it Paralyzed, not as weakness, but as a statement. He took the exact word people were using against him and flipped it into power. In the track, he went directly at Shiesty, throwing out accusations and questioning his image. He called him an informant, labeled him as someone who talks tough online, and suggested he relied on industry backing for protection. He even questioned why, if things were as serious as claimed, the situation didn't end worse. All of this while still recovering, wearing a cast, and refusing to stay quiet. But then something happened that made everything even heavier. The same morning Paralyzed dropped, literally the exact day it went live, Pooh Shiesty's brother passed away. He'd been in critical condition for days and died just hours before EBK released the track. Nobody could have planned that, nobody lined it up, but the timing made everything feel even more intense. Just like that, a situation that was already serious reached another level, not because of strategy, but because real-life events collided at the worst possible moment. Paralyzed Still gained major attention, pulling in close to 400,000 views within a week. EBK's visibility grew fast, with followers jumping from a few thousand to tens of thousands almost overnight. Now Memphis had two narratives rising at once. On one side, a major artist gaining national attention, and on the other, someone building momentum by pushing back and refusing to step away no matter what. But behind all the views, the comments, and the viral moments, something else was happening. While the internet focused on the music, the real situation in the streets kept unfolding, and it carried way more weight than anything said in a song. Here's the part that doesn't get enough attention. While the rap back and forth played out online, while tracks dropped and posts went up, the real conflict between Choppa Gang and EBK was unfolding off-camera in real time across Memphis. And it was serious, far beyond lyrics. This wasn't just music drama, this was real life, with real consequences affecting real people every single day. The music gave outsiders a glimpse into what was happening, but it only showed a small part of the full picture. Behind that, there were ongoing incidents, people injured, others facing life-changing outcomes, and some lives tragically lost. On both sides, individuals were impacted in ways that go far beyond anything seen online. And for their families, mothers, siblings, children, this wasn't content. This was late-night phone calls, hospital visits, and moments that changed everything forever. Empty seats at the table, memories that can't be replaced, those are the parts that don't trend, but matter the most. Memphis has carried cycles of hardship for decades, but during the early 2020s, around the time this conflict was escalating, many residents said things felt more intense than they had in years. Situations across the city were rising, often tied to smaller, less structured groups. These independent crews, often without clear leadership or boundaries, created environments where conflicts could escalate quickly. These weren't random enemies, these were people with real history. Some grew up in the same neighborhoods, went to the same schools, and crossed paths long before things turned serious. And that kind of familiarity doesn't make things easier, it makes them more intense. When history's involved, problems become personal, and that makes it harder for things to cool down. The divide between North Memphis and South Memphis had been building tension for years. The layout of the city, how neighborhoods are structured, and how different groups have represented certain areas, and all of that played a role in building this kind of situation. In a lot of ways, Choppa Gang and EBK became the latest example of that pressure hitting a breaking point with a new generation. And the music just happened to capture everything right as it started escalating fast. Every line Pooh Shiesty delivered about incidents, rivalries, and real-life situations, it wasn't just entertainment. It reflected things people in the city were already aware of. And when EBK responded, they weren't creating a story either. They were speaking on situations they believed were real, addressing things that had been unfolding long before any of it ever reached a studio. Memphis in 2021 was already under heavy tension, and Back in Blood ended up being the moment that pushed everything onto a global stage. While everything was playing out publicly, legal pressure was quietly building around Choppa Gang from multiple directions. This wasn't just about music anymore. Cases were stacking up, and authorities were closing in. Let's start with the members before getting to Shiesty. Lil Hank, one of the founding members of Choppa Gang, was taken into custody facing a serious charge tied to an incident involving a vehicle being shot at, leaving someone with life-altering injuries. Prosecutors claimed it was a case of mistaken identity, wrong target, wrong situation. That kind of scenario shows how fast things can spiral when decisions are made without full information. Then there's Choppa T, another key member dealing with extremely serious legal charges, including one tied to the loss of life, along with additional charges connected to other incidents. On paper, his case was even more severe. Big 30, Shiesty's close friend since childhood and one of the original members, also found himself dealing with legal trouble. He was picked up on felony-related charges in Alabama, and just weeks before Shiesty's situation escalated, he was extradited back to Memphis for a separate case. Even with all that going on, he managed to secure release and dropped a track titled First Day Out, moving like nothing had slowed him down. Because in that environment, that's often how things play out. And then there's Shiesty himself. In October 2020, in Bay Harbor Islands, a small area in Miami-Dade County located right near the local police department, authorities say he was connected to an incident that took place in a parking lot that afternoon. According to reports, the situation started with a man attempting to sell items including shoes and substances to Shiesty. What investigators say happened next escalated quickly. Allegations claimed the situation turned into a robbery where the man was threatened, had his belongings taken, and was left injured, later ending up in the hospital. Authorities also claimed the group left the scene quickly, reportedly using a high-end vehicle before leaving the state by private jet. An arrest followed, but even after that, Shiesty was able to secure release. And what stands out is that despite everything happening legally, he kept pushing forward in his career. He continued dropping music, doing interviews, appearing on billboards, and building major streaming numbers, all while dealing with a serious federal case in the background. Then in June 2021, he was arrested again, this time tied to another incident in Atlanta involving gunfire at a venue. That marked a second major arrest in under a year, and at that point, the pressure was clearly building. By January 2022, Shiesty made a major legal decision. He entered a guilty plea to federal conspiracy charges connected to the Florida case. No trial, no long courtroom battle. He took the deal. Then in April 2022, the sentence came down, 5 years and 3 months in federal prison. He was sent to USP Canaan in Pennsylvania. This was someone who had just reached the top, one of the most streamed artists out of Memphis, even ranking just behind Drake at his peak. With Shiesty off the scene, attention started shifting, and behind the scenes, law enforcement had already been building cases on the other side for a long time. This wasn't sudden, it had been developing for years. The Memphis Safe Streets Task Force, a joint operation involving local police, agents, and specialized units, had been quietly putting everything together. They were collecting evidence, tracking activity, and documenting patterns through social media, surveillance, informants, and multiple investigatory tools to build strong cases. EBK was one of the main groups under investigation, along with other known organizations across Memphis. Authorities identified them as one of the most active groups in the city during that period. Over the course of the investigation, more than 400 arrests were made connected to organized group activity across multiple factions, and EBK was among those heavily impacted. Looking at individual cases, one name that kept coming up was Moo Slime, whose real name is Courtney Campbell. He was considered one of the more active individuals connected to EBK and tied to early moments in the conflict. Reports showed his name appearing multiple times over several years in incidents involving firearms, 8 separate reports in total. That level of repeated attention from authorities raised serious concerns. One of the most talked about incidents came in 2022 when he was accused of pointing a firearm at people attending a candlelight vigil, a memorial gathering meant to honor someone who had passed. Moments like that only added to the pressure building from investigators and the overall situation in the city. If you made it this far, hit that like button and subscribe, because stories like this go deeper than headlines, and there's always more to uncover. On New Year's Day 2021, a man from North Memphis woke up, walked into a studio, and recorded a diss track aimed directly at one of the most feared crews in the city. He wasn't a rapper, and he wasn't chasing fame, streams, or a flashy plaque on the wall. This was something deeper. He was reacting to something real, something personal that had been building in Memphis streets for years. He dropped the track, and within hours, the internet went crazy. Just 3 days later, he was hit multiple times in a shooting. Most people in that situation would rush to the hospital, lay low, be thankful they survived, and move. That would be the normal response, the human response, but not him. He pulled himself together, had surgery on his arm, got it put in a cast, and went straight back to the studio like nothing could slow him down. Still wearing that cast, he recorded another diss track, making sure everybody felt it. And this wasn't just some random drop either. He gave it a name that said everything: Paralyzed. Okay, so Pooh Shiesty drops Back in Blood with Lil Durk, and you guys respond to it, you know? So you took that first song as a diss toward you? The song, yeah, you could tell it was. Yeah, I took it as a diss, but the reason I responded is because it was just false. Like straight up made up. A whole bunch of exaggerated situations. That's really what made me react. Because rumors started spreading online saying the incident left him unable to move. Instead of hiding, he flipped that narrative and turned it into strength. That move alone says a lot about what we're really dealing with here today. This isn't just internet drama or artists going back and forth over business deals or unpaid money. This goes way deeper than music, and every move carries real consequences. This is a long-running, heavily documented street conflict between 2 known groups in one of the toughest cities in the United States. This is Choppa Gang versus EBK, South Memphis versus North Memphis. And by the time you reach the end of this, you'll understand exactly how it started, how far it escalated, and where things stand right now in 2026, because this story is still unfolding. We're talking serious federal cases, major consequences, and moments that shook entire communities. We're talking about a rap track that unexpectedly pushed a private street situation into the spotlight, reaching over 50 million people in just 1 month. We're talking about one man getting a 20-year sentence and another walking out of federal prison after serving over 1,000 days, only to return straight to the same city that shaped him. This situation runs deep, and every detail connects. Stay locked in, because before breaking down Choppa Gang and EBK, you need to understand Memphis itself. You can't fully grasp what's happening without understanding the environment that shaped both sides. Memphis, often ranked among the most challenging cities in America, has carried that reputation on and off for decades. This didn't happen overnight. It's a cycle the city has seen again and again. Memphis is a place where 2 completely different worlds exist side by side. It sits right in the heart of the Bible Belt, packed with churches in almost every area. Blues, soul, the birthplace of rock and roll, Beale Street, Graceland, and the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., who lost his life at the Lorraine Motel in 1968. Memphis carries all that history, culture, and meaning. But on the other side of that same coin, in areas like South Memphis, North Memphis, Orange Mound, Fraser, and Whitehaven, there are neighborhoods dealing with serious poverty and ongoing safety challenges. In some of these areas, life expectancy can be nearly 20 years shorter than neighborhoods just a few miles away. 20 years just based on the zip code someone is born into. That alone shows how serious things can get. Some families take extra precautions at night, even choosing to sleep lower to the ground to stay safe. That's not exaggeration, that's reality for some residents. There are parents who don't feel safe letting their kids play outside after dark because the risks feel too high. Memphis is also home to the presence of several nationally known groups, including Gangster Disciples, Vice Lords, Bloods, and Crips. But what really makes Memphis different is what law enforcement often calls a hybrid setup. You've got smaller, tight-knit crews that either branch off from or move alongside larger groups. These are younger circles operating independently, not always following traditional leadership structures. No older figures stepping in to guide decisions, just strong loyalty within their group, influencing moves that can change everything quickly. Because of that, these smaller crews are often seen as more unpredictable than larger organizations. Situations can escalate faster, and there's usually less structure keeping things in check. That lack of oversight can make tensions rise quickly, and outcomes can turn serious before anyone has time to react. That's the environment that shaped both Choppa Gang and EBK. And one thing outsiders don't always understand about Memphis, it's a small world in a big city. People from different sides often know each other in real life. The city is big enough for divisions, but still close enough that many grew up together, went to the same schools, and recognize familiar faces. That connection is what makes everything feel so personal. It's not strangers going back and forth, it's people who know each other's names, people who may have crossed paths in school hallways or shared the same spaces growing up. And that history doesn't make things easier, it can make everything feel even more intense. Now let's rewind to where Pooh Shiesty's story begins. Born Lantrell Williams, he grew up in the Cane Creek apartments in South Memphis. To understand the setting, Cane Creek isn't far from where Moneybag Yo was rising, not far from where Young Dolph built his name, and not far from where Black Youngster was making his presence known. His father was already a known figure in the streets before Pooh was even old enough to understand that lifestyle. He was connected to a record label called Mob Ties, but behind the scenes, there was more going on than just music. Back in 2006, one of the artists tied to that label, known as Miscellaneous, was involved in a serious incident at a birthday party in Memphis where multiple people were injured. Organizers already knew there was tension between him and Yo Gotti. They were aware of the situation, and instead of shutting things down, they increased security, bringing in dozens of guards and installing metal detectors at the entrance. But even with those precautions, things still escalated. Several people were hurt that night, showing just how intense things had already become. That same year, Shiesty's father faced major legal trouble connected to a case involving the loss of a local female DJ. He was later placed under supervision, but that didn't fully stop his movements. For months after, he was reportedly operating out of a house on Porter Street, a dead-end block that looked quiet and empty from the outside. It gave the appearance of nothing going on, like a place people would walk past without thinking twice. What he didn't know was that authorities had been watching that location closely for a long time.